studied countless faces, attempting to see not just how they look, but who they are.
In a dusty attic in Madrid, 1965, two librarians made a discovery that would rewrite history. Hidden behind centuries of neglect, they found two leather-bound notebooks filled with mirror writing, mechanical drawings, and impossible machines. Flying machines with wings like birds, helicopters that spun through the air, tanks that moved without horses, submarines that traveled underwater. The notebooks belonged to Leonardo da Vinci, and they proved that one man had imagined the future 500 years before it arrived. But Leonardo never saw a single one of his flying machines take to the sky. He never witnessed his helicopters spin through the clouds. He never watched his tanks roll across battlefields. He was a man born centuries too early, cursed to dream of a world that wouldn't exist until long after his death. This is the story of history's greatest visionary and its most tragic prisoner of time. What would you sacrifice to see the future if you knew you'd never live to witness it become reality? Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452, in the small Tuscan town of Vinci. He was the illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman, a bastard child in a world that valued legitimacy above all else. But Leonardo's illegitimate birth would become his greatest gift. Because he couldn't inherit his father's profession or attend university, he was free to follow his curiosity wherever it led. And Leonardo's curiosity was boundless. As a child, he dissected dead animals to understand how they moved. He studied the flight of birds for hours, sketching their wings and analyzing their movements. He watched water flow over rocks, fascinated by the patterns it created. "Obstacles do not bend me," Leonardo wrote in his notebooks. "Every obstacle is destroyed through rigor." At 14, Leonardo was apprenticed to Andrea del Verrocchio, one of Florence's most respected artists. But Leonardo wasn't content to simply paint pretty pictures. He wanted to understand everything. How did muscles work? How did light behave? How did machines transfer force? How did birds stay aloft? Leonardo's notebooks became a repository of impossible questions and revolutionary answers. He designed a flying machine with wings that flapped like a bird's. He called it the ornithopter, from the Greek words for bird and wing. The machine was beautiful, elegant, and completely impossible to build with 15th century technology. Leonardo needed lightweight materials that wouldn't be invented for 400 years. He needed engines that wouldn't exist for 450 years. He needed an understanding of aerodynamics that wouldn't develop for 500 years. But Leonardo didn't know that. He only knew that birds could fly, so machines should be able to fly too. "Once you have tasted flight," Leonardo wrote, "you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return." Leonardo's genius wasn't limited to flying machines. His notebooks contained designs for a helicopter he called the aerial screw, a machine that would lift itself into the air by spinning a large screw through the atmosphere. A tank he called the armored vehicle, a moving fortress that could protect soldiers while they fired cannons at enemies. A submarine, a boat that could travel underwater to attack enemy ships without being seen. A parachute, a pyramid-shaped device that would allow a man to jump from great heights and land safely. A machine gun, a weapon that could fire multiple projectiles rapidly. A robot, a mechanical knight that could move its arms and head. Each design was centuries ahead of its time. Each was based on careful observation of nature and rigorous application of mechanical principles, and each was impossible to build. Leonardo lived in a world of wood, rope, and iron. His flying machines required aluminum and steel. His engines needed gasoline and electricity. His precision instruments demanded manufacturing techniques that wouldn't exist for centuries. He was like a man trying to build a computer with stone tools. But Leonardo never stopped trying. In 1505, he convinced himself that his flying machine was ready for testing. He climbed to the top of Monte Ceccheri, near Florence, with a contraption of wood, leather, and rope strapped to his back. Leonardo had studied birds for decades. He understood lift and thrust and drag. He had calculated wing loading and power requirements. But when he jumped from the mountain, he didn't soar like an eagle. He crashed like a stone. Leonardo survived, but his dream of human flight was shattered. He never attempted to fly again. The dream of flight is cracked along the back, he wrote in his notebook, but the dream itself is not broken. Leonardo's frustration with the limitations of his time extended beyond flying machines. He was a painter who wanted to capture motion, but was limited to static images. He was an engineer who designed incredible machines, but couldn't build them. He was a scientist who made revolutionary discoveries, but had no way to share them with the world. His notebooks were written in mirror script, backwards writing that could only be read with a mirror. Some historians believe this was to keep his ideas secret. Others think it was simply because Leonardo was left-handed, and mirror writing prevented him from smudging the ink. But perhaps Leonardo wrote backwards because he was always looking toward a future he couldn't reach. Leonardo's paintings were revolutionary, but even they frustrated him. The Mona Lisa took him 4 years to complete, and he was never satisfied with it. He carried the painting with him for the rest of his life, constantly making tiny adjustments. Art is never finished, only abandoned, Leonardo said. The same was true of his inventions. Leonardo rarely completed anything because he was always imagining something better, something more advanced, something closer to the impossible future he could see in his mind. He started hundreds of projects and finished almost none of them. Leonardo designed a city with multiple levels, upper streets for pedestrians, lower streets for carts and sewage. It was a brilliant solution to urban congestion that wouldn't be implemented until the 20th century. He designed canals and locks that could move water uphill. He designed bridges that could span impossible distances. He designed fortifications that could withstand any siege. But Leonardo lived in a world of petty princes and constant warfare. His patrons wanted weapons, not wonders. They wanted practical solutions to immediate problems, not visionary glimpses of distant futures. Leonardo spent years designing the perfect horse statue for the Duke of Milan. It would have been the largest bronze sculpture ever created, a monument to human ambition and artistic achievement. But when war came, the bronze was melted down to make cannons. Leonardo's horse existed only in his sketches and his dreams. As Leonardo aged, his frustration grew. He could see so clearly how the world could be improved, but he lacked the tools to improve it. He designed machines that could dig canals, but they required steam power. He designed flying machines that could carry passengers, but they needed internal combustion engines. He designed weapons that could end wars, but they required gunpowder and precision manufacturing. Leonardo was a man of the future trapped in the past. In his final years, Leonardo moved to France, where King Francis I gave him a manor house and a generous pension. The king called Leonardo premier painter, engineer, and architect to the king, the first time in history that an artist had been given such a title. But Leonardo was no longer interested in titles or honors. He was an old man haunted by visions of a world he would never see. He spent his last years organizing his notebooks, trying to preserve his ideas for future generations. He wrote treatises on anatomy, engineering, and art. He drew maps of the human heart and diagrams of impossible machines. Leonardo da Vinci died on May 2, 1519, at the age of 67. Legend says he died in the arms of King Francis I, but historians doubt this romantic tale. What we know for certain is that Leonardo died surrounded by thousands of pages of notes and drawings, a lifetime of revolutionary ideas that the world wasn't ready to understand. For centuries, Leonardo's notebooks were scattered and forgotten. His flying machines were dismissed as fantasies. His engineering designs were ignored as impractical. His scientific observations were overlooked as the doodles of an artist. But in the 20th century, as humans finally developed the technology Leonardo had imagined, his notebooks were rediscovered and studied with new appreciation. Engineers realized that Leonardo's flying machines were aerodynamically sound. His helicopter design was mechanically correct. His tank was strategically brilliant. His parachute was perfectly functional. In 2000, British skydiver Adrian Nicholas built a parachute based on Leonardo's 500-year-old design. He jumped from 10,000 feet and landed safely. Leonardo's parachute worked perfectly. In 2019, engineers at the University of Maryland built a flying machine based on Leonardo's ornithopter design. Using modern materials and computer controls, they achieved what Leonardo had dreamed of 500 years earlier. The machine flew. Leonardo had been right all along. He had seen the future with perfect clarity. He had understood principles of flight, engineering, and design that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries. But he had been born 500 years too early. Leonardo da Vinci designed flying machines 500 years before the Wright brothers. He imagined helicopters 450 years before Igor Sikorsky. He conceived tanks 400 years before World War I. He envisioned robots 500 years before the computer age. He was history's greatest visionary and its most tragic prisoner of time. Leonardo saw the future, but he was trapped in the past. He dreamed of flight, but he was bound to Earth. He imagined machines that could transform the world, but he lived in a world that couldn't build them. "I have been impressed with the urgency of doing," Leonardo wrote in his final notebook entry. "Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Being willing is not enough. We must do." But Leonardo couldn't do what he most wanted to do. He couldn't fly. He couldn't build his impossible machines. He couldn't live in the future he had imagined so clearly. He could only dream and sketch and hope that someday someone would understand. Today, we live in Leonardo's world. We fly in machines he designed. We use principles he discovered. We benefit from ideas he imagined. Every airplane carries a piece of Leonardo's dream. Every helicopter spins with his vision. Every robot moves with his mechanical understanding. Leonardo da Vinci never saw a flying machine take to the sky. But every time we board a plane, we fulfill his 500-year-old dream. He designed flying machines 500 years early, but he never saw one fly. And perhaps that's the most beautiful tragedy of all, that Leonardo's greatest gift to humanity was a future he would never witness, dreams he would never see realized, and machines that would soar long after he had returned to dust. Leonardo da Vinci, the man who gave us wings, even though he never learned to fly.